The purpose of this mini lesson is to go over thesis and overall focus of the Unit 1 analysis essay over The America I Know by President Obama. Let's revisit our prompt. The prompt said, think about what we have discussed regarding theme in literature and purpose in nonfiction and how both theme and purpose transcend time, distance, and genre. Right. How does President Obama's tone help to develop the purpose of his The America I Know speech? In order to successfully answer this prompt, you had to address two things. First, let's talk about tone. Take a look at your map that you use to plan your essay, which is the same as the one on the screen now. In your center circle, you should have identified a tone that President Obama uses in the excerpt that you were given. Some hints provided to you were the definition of tone, which is the author's attitude toward the subject. To determine tone, first decide if the tone is positive, negative, or neutral. Then, based on your decision, determine an appropriate tone, such as hopeful, optimistic, hostile, direct, commanding, detached. These are just some examples of the tone words that were provided to you. Not all are appropriate for every excerpt of the speech, so you had to read your excerpt carefully to determine the tone that was being used in that point of the speech. Let's take a look at the tone of this part of the speech. Each of you received this part in your excerpt. As I read, look at the words that I select and think about what tone you think they develop. Obama says, we turn on the TV or surf the internet and we can watch positions harden and lines drawn, and people retreat to their respective corners, and politicians calculate how to grab attention or to avoid the fallout. We see all this, and it's hard not to think sometimes that the center won't hold and that things might get worse. I understand how Americans are feeling, but Dallas, I'm here to say we must reject such despair. I'm here to insist that we are not as divided as we seem. And I know that because I know America. I know how far we've come against impossible odds. Think about the tone that is being developed by the words I've highlighted on the screen. The tone I've selected for this portion of President Obama's speech is direct. Words like positions harden, lines drawn, reject, despair, insist we are not as divided. The diction that he uses here is very direct and even commanding to his target audience. What other tones might he have developed in this section? And what words can you highlight that support that tone? If you cannot find words or phrases that support a tone you've selected for your particular excerpt, it might be a tone that is appropriate to some part of the speech, but it really had to apply to the excerpt that you were given. So look back at your excerpt and see if there are words or phrases that you can pinpoint that support the tone you've selected. If you can't find words or phrases to support the tone you've selected, then you need to re-identify the tone in your center circle. The next thing you must identify in order to successfully answer the prompt is President Obama's purpose in his speech. Some hints you were given as to the purpose were the definition that purpose is the speaker's goal when sharing with an audience. Purpose is defined with specific verbs such as to persuade, to educate, to warn, to challenge, to entertain, to unify, to promote, to condemn, or to encourage. And this was just a list of options. You did not have to select your purpose from this list. You also should have added on to this verb stem. So his purpose wasn't simply to persuade, but maybe it was to persuade American viewers of the speech that even though there is both racial tension and tension stemming from the perception that there is police brutality targeted toward race, but that despite those two things, we must come together to unify. So notice I did not simply say the purpose is to persuade, but I elaborated and applied to the specific speech what his purpose was. I simply used the stem to persuade as a jumping off point. Now looking at the same excerpt that we just looked at together and keeping in mind that this was part of the excerpt you were given in class on Thursday, try to determine one sentence that captures overall what he's trying to do through his speech. The claim of his speech, which really exemplifies his purpose, is found here in the second paragraph when Obama says, "I'm here to insist that we are not as divided as we seem." If we just take a look at the sentence that's been highlighted as his claim, it is much easier to determine what his overall purpose is. I started with the purpose stem to encourage. Based off of this claim, I've said that Obama's purpose is to encourage U.S. citizens of all political and social beliefs that we are all on the same side. We all want peace and unity in our country. Now that we've identified a clear purpose for President Obama's speech and a specific tone, both which are supportable through text evidence as we've seen previously in the video, it's now time to put it all together into one sentence that clearly answers the question, how does President Obama's tone develop the overall purpose of his speech? Putting these ideas together, I said, President Obama's direct tone in the America I Know serves to encourage United States citizens of all political and social beliefs that we are all on the same side. We all want peace and unity in our country. So to recap, in order to successfully answer all parts of the prompt, you must identify a specific tone that is supportable through text evidence in the excerpt you were given, as well as a clear purpose, which again is supportable through text evidence in the excerpt you were given. To write a successful thesis, you must answer both parts of the question in one clear sentence. This sentence should be the last sentence of your introductory paragraph.